Hi, and welcome to this Friday's Facebook Live with me, Louisa Whitney from LKW Family Mediation. I hope that you haven't been thrown by the change of time. As I think I've said before, sometimes I just have to move things around a little bit just to accommodate other things in my diary. So, as you may have seen, on Monday I published the first blog in a new series, and I'm very much focusing this month on family mediation and what happens in family mediation, what is it? And I'm going to come on to talking about why you might want to try it, what the benefits of it are, and what happens if it doesn't work, because I know that that is a really big concern people have, that if they come into family mediation and they've paid for mediation sessions, what do they do if they've spent that money and they haven't managed to achieve a resolution? So I will be talking about that a bit later on in this month too. But this morning I'm talking about what happens in family mediation. And I thought it might be helpful just to touch a little bit on what the heck is family mediation. You know, it's a term that I think a lot of people have heard, but there are definitely misconceptions around it. You know, is it some kind of relationship therapy? Is it designed to get us back together again? Lots and lots of things. So I wanted to use this morning's Facebook Live just to dispel some of those myths and also to explain what happens. So firstly, family mediation usually happens after one or both parties have taken the decision that the relationship is at an end and they need to talk about what happens next. And I say usually because it's not unheard of that people come into family mediation because they're not sure if they're going to separate and they want a safe space to be able to talk about that, to work out whether they need family mediation to talk about what happens next, or whether they need some kind of relationship therapist to try to help them improve their relationship. So I just wanted to kind of put that in there because I think it's important. A family mediator, so someone like me, is someone that has skills and qualifications to bring a couple who are separating together to help them talk about what happens next for them. And that might include discussions about money and how they're each going to house themselves, how they're going to be able to make ends meet going forwards. That can be a really scary part of a separation because for a lot of people, they have been just about able to make ends meet in one property, or maybe even enjoyed a sort of comfortable lifestyle in one property. But when you start looking at how will we pay for two different homes, that can bring up an awful lot of fears about will we be able to make ends meet, how will we pay bills? And it also leads into other fears about whether you might need to return to work if you haven't been working, whether you might need to increase your working hours, whether you might need to think about looking for an alternative job that maybe pays a bit better. And that can then lead into fears about what happens for children. So a family mediator brings people together to talk about all of these things, the practical, where are we going to live, the kind of emotional stuff that's coming up, because it can really help to understand what are your fears at the moment, because often fears drive the way that we communicate with other people. When we're scared, we can sometimes lash out, be that verbally or sometimes physically, and that understanding that can be a really important part of discussing things. Mediation is also really useful for talking about issues concerning your children. When a couple separates, if they've got children, then they need to talk about what's going to happen for those children. When will the children be with mum? When will they be with dad? They may also need to really work out what is co-parenting going to look like for us. And co-parenting is a term that I think is sometimes a bit misunderstood or a bit misused. Co-parenting doesn't mean that children are 50% with mum and 50% with dad. Sometimes children will be with mum 50% and sometimes they'll be with dad 50%, but sometimes the practical realities of a situation mean that that's not workable or possible or not the best thing for the children. So it doesn't mean you're not co-parenting. Even if the children only see one parent every other weekend, you can still be co-parenting together. Co-parenting to me simply means how you work together as parents. So if you've got a son, say, who is currently 6 years old, and you fast forward to a few years, and suddenly there's a computer game that he really wants because all of his friends are playing it and he really wants it, and he'll be the only one in the class that doesn't have it. How do you deal with this issue? Can you pick up the phone to each other? Can you meet for a coffee and have a chat about what are our concerns about this? What do we think any benefits of this might be? How are we going to deal with this? And put a plan in place as to what's going to happen in mum's home and what's going to happen in dad's home. That is co-parenting. That's working together to deal with different issues that crop up for the benefit of your children. I think I've talked before about Facebook Lives, in Facebook Lives and in other blogs that I've done. You know, if you fast forward more years and you look at when your children get married, are they going to be able to tell you both when they see you and be really excited and plan the wedding with you? Or are your children going to have to really carefully think about, we mustn't tell dad before we tell mum, and we mustn't tell mum before we tell dad, and how are we going to manage a wedding because they don't like being in the same room? Are we going to have 2 separate wedding parties? What do you want your children's future to look like with separated parents? And that's something that it's really important for you to give thought to and to define. And you know, it will look different for different people. You know, for some people, it can be a challenge to manage pleasantries when you see each other because the emotions are so raw. And family mediation is a lot about, right, this is where you're at the moment. Where do you want to be? What would you like things to look like? And once you know where you are and you know where you want to be, what needs to happen to get you from where you are to where you want to be? And you know, sometimes you may be talking a journey of quite some time to get to where you want to be, but that doesn't matter. The point is that you have a plan as to where you are now and where you want to be, and you know what steps you need to take to enable you to get there. And those steps might be working together very slowly, very gradually, building things up to try and re-establish some of the trust in the relationship, but trust in a very different way. Because when you separate, you may lose the trust that you had as partners, as lovers, as best friends, but you have to build some level of trust as co-parents, and that can take a while. And it may also involve the help of other professionals, such as therapists, coaches, parenting experts, psychologists, all different people. And so your plan may partly include other professionals and seeking help from them, but it's a plan that you can make in family mediation. So how do family mediators do all that? Well, for starters, we are specialists in divorce and separation, so we can give you lots and lots of information about things to think about different processes, about things that we know can be common problems in divorce and separation. We can give you information about other professionals, lots and lots of information. The only thing that family mediators can't do is to give legal advice, because that favours one person's interests over the other quite often, and family mediators are there to be impartial. Our role is not to say who's right or who's wrong. Our role is to help people to find a way forward. And the other part of our role is that we're there to help you find your solution. It's again not a family mediator's job to say, do you know what you should do? You should really do this. That's the best way forward for you. Because, you know, we get to know you in family mediation sessions, but we don't know you as well as we know you, as well as you know yourselves. We don't know your children. You know your children best. So it's really about you finding a solution that will work best for you. And a family mediator's job is to give you information and tools and to help you keep your discussions on track, so that you can find the resolution that's going to work best for you and your family. And in family mediation sessions, a family mediator will help you to structure your discussions. Certainly one of the things that I see is often couples who are separating tend to start talking about one issue and then leap to another issue, and then that gives rise to something else. So we can help to keep you focused on a particular issue so that you can try to resolve one thing before you move on to something else. We can also help you to understand that a lot of the things that worry couples going through a separation are entirely normal. It is completely normal for couples to fall out, say mean things, sometimes threaten things, and it is a difficult time. People are emotional and people are fearful, and sometimes people react from that place. And it's not nice, it's not pretty, it can make people feel pretty uncomfortable and upset, but it is part of what happens. And one of the things that I often say to clients in mediation is that nobody can change what's happened up until this moment in time, and humans often wish we could. I can think of a fair few examples of things in my life where I think if I could get in a time machine and go back, I would do that very differently. But we can't. But what we can do is learn from things that have happened, decide how we would like things to be moving forward, and make a plan as to how we can make the plan that we want to put into place happen. And that is really what happens in family mediation. It's about problem solving and about sharing and about helping each party to understand what it is that each of them are trying to achieve, having that kind of understanding of the objectives of each person, the fears of each person, the concerns that each person may have, so that you can talk about how you can move past those. And the way that this happens on a very practical level is that each party will meet with a family mediator to start off with in a separate meeting. So that enables the mediator to explain more about what happens in mediation so that each person can decide, is this right for me? Is this the right process for me to use? One of the things a family mediator should also explain in an initial meeting is all of the different ways that exist to help couples who are separating to resolve issues, because having that information enables people to make an informed choice about, is mediation right for me, or is another process going to work better for us? And that's really important because you can only make an informed choice about things when you have all the information. And it's also important to point out that the mediation process is entirely voluntary. There is a requirement that anybody commencing a court application about a family matter attends a meeting to find out more about mediation, but it is purely a meeting to find out more. It's not forcing people into the same room as the person they're separating from. There's always a choice. The initial meetings also enable the mediator to assess whether mediation is a suitable process for this couple to use. There aren't many reasons why mediation isn't suitable, but the mediator has to give thought and has to really be mindful of everybody's safety, and that's physical safety as well as emotional safety. And that's something that each mediator makes an assessment on once they've met with both parties. It also means that the mediator can get some background information about what's happened and what people want to achieve going forward, what their ideal outcome would be, what kind of issues they see, what they think are the barriers to things being resolved, because that can be really helpful. Once those initial meetings have taken place, each party can then decide whether mediation is right for them, if the mediator thinks it's suitable. And they then come to meetings where they're present together, where they start to talk about all the things that they've highlighted they want to resolve, and the mediator will help them structure their discussions so that they can then make the best use of their meetings. One of the things I always say to clients is the meetings are yours. You can decide what it is going to be most helpful for you to talk about in the meeting. I'm not going to say to you, you must talk about this, you must talk about that. It's your meeting. So at the meeting, we'll usually craft an agenda based on what each person wants to talk about and what they feel are the most pressing issues. I always hesitate slightly before I talk about what the number of meetings that an average separating couple need, because frankly, what is an average separation? It's one of the most significant life events somebody can go through, but it is something that is helpful for people to have some kind of yardstick on how many meetings they might need. So averagely, couples tend to need between 3 and 5 joint mediation meetings to sort out all of the issues. That's not to say that it might not be possible to resolve things in team meetings, or that occasionally a couple might need a 6th meeting, but it just gives you a kind of average guide. And the next question that usually arises out of that is, well, how often do the meetings take place? And that really is something that depends on the couple involved. There are often considerations like, if there's more information that you need to get after each meeting, how long will it take you to get that information together? If it's just that some bank statements were missing from the financial disclosure, which is an essential part of mediation, then it may be that someone can print those off and they could be back at another meeting next week if that works for them. If there's more information about pensions, or somebody needs to, for example, go and see a mortgage advisor, that may take a little more time. There are also logistical constraints about meetings, because in order to put a mediation meeting in the diary, you have to coordinate 3 people's diaries, and that in itself can mean that sometimes it can take a little while to set up a meeting, particularly when people are working around work commitments and childcare commitments and those kind of things. So I hope that this has given you a kind of initial flavour of what happens in family mediation. Look out for the further information about family mediation coming out. Next Monday, there will be a new blog going up, the second one in the series, and then I will be doing a Facebook Live at the usual time of 12 o'clock next Friday. If you feel that you could do with some help to navigate the choppy waters of your separation, then why not sign up for our free mailing list? You'll get all of the support and hints and tips and blogs that we write directly into your inbox. If you feel that would be helpful for you, it's completely free. You can sign up via bit.ly/LKW Fammed list. And if you are a professional that works with individuals or couples going through a separation, and you'd like to get the same resources to share with your clients, and you'd like details of our training events, workshops and networking for professionals working with those going through a separation, then you can sign up to our professionals mailing list, which is bit.ly/LKW Fammed sign up. That's all from me on this very rainy, dark morning in Dorking in Surrey. As always, if you need to get in touch, visit our website, lkwfamilymediation.co.uk. Thanks very much for being with me. Bye-bye.